She thought it was funny when I caught her cheating. She actually laughed about it, called me a doormat behind my back. But what she didn't know was that laughter would cost her everything: her reputation, her relationships, and even the people she thought were on her side. Because if there's one thing you don't do, it's make someone feel like a joke when all they ever gave you was love. If you've ever been betrayed, or if you've ever dreamed of seeing justice unfold right before your eyes, then stick with me. Because this story isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming dignity when someone tries to take it from you. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and comment with the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed. Trust me, you won't want to miss the way this one unravels. I wasn't the kind of guy who snoops. I always believed trust was the foundation of a relationship. But you know those gut instincts you can't shake? The ones that whisper in your ear late at night, saying something isn't right? That's exactly what hit me. My girlfriend at the time, let's call her Emily, had been working at this restaurant for a while. Nothing unusual about that. She had a couple of managers, a hectic schedule, the kind of workplace drama you half ignore when she vents about it. But lately, there was something in her phone behavior that felt off. Quick, sly little smiles at messages. The phone flipped screen down whenever I walked into the room. And when I asked, she brushed it off with that casual tone people use when they're trying too hard to sound casual. I told myself I was being paranoid. But the thing about intuition, it only gets louder when you ignore it. One night, while she was in the shower, my eyes landed on her phone. It wasn't locked. I knew her passcode. My heart was pounding in my throat. I remember my hand actually trembling as I picked it up, half hoping I'd find nothing and feel guilty for even looking. But the truth? It didn't take me 30 seconds to find what I feared. There it was, her text thread with one of her managers. And it wasn't just friendly banter. It was graphic, flirty, explicit. The kind of messages you send when you're imagining someone in your bed, not when you're in a committed relationship. Dirty jokes, sexual compliments, plans to hang out after work, even pictures, stuff no partner ever wants to see their girlfriend sending to someone else. I felt the air punch out of my lungs. You know that sinking, hot feeling in your stomach when betrayal becomes real? It's like the world narrows and you're both numb and burning at the same time. When she got out of the shower, I confronted her. My voice was tight, shaky, but I tried to keep it calm. I told her I'd seen the messages. I asked her to explain. And you know what she did? She played it off, said it wasn't serious, said it was just flirting, as if my heart wasn't breaking in real time. But because I still cared about her, because I still wanted to believe there was something worth saving, I laid down a condition. I told her she had to cut it off. No more texting him. Block his number. End it. She looked me in the eye and agreed. For a moment, I almost believed we could move forward. The very next day, something told me to check again. Maybe it was paranoia. Maybe it was self-preservation. I picked up her phone while she was out, and just like that, the lie collapsed. Not even 24 hours had passed, and there she was again, texting him back, picking up right where they left off. And then came the part that really burned. I scrolled through their messages and saw her talking about me, about how I'd caught her, about how hilarious she thought it was, how she planned to keep in touch with him. Once we're done, she called me a doormat, a joke, an option. Do you have any idea how emasculating that feels? To know the person you trusted most doesn't just betray you, but mocks you to someone else while doing it? I sat there staring at the screen, my chest tight, my hands shaking, and something inside me snapped. This wasn't just cheating. This was humiliation. This was her dragging my dignity through the mud. And in that moment, a new thought cut through the heartbreak. If she saw me as a joke, then I was about to show her what the punchline looked like. When betrayal pushes you past your breaking point, anger does something strange. It sharpens. It stops being chaos and starts becoming clarity. I still had access to all her accounts. Instagram, Snapchat. I knew her passwords. And right then, I decided, if she wanted to play games behind my back, then the whole world was about to see the scoreboard. I gathered screenshots, every incriminating message, every dirty line of text, every photo she thought was private. My heart was pounding as I compiled it all. Part of me thought, this is insane. Don't do it. Another part whispered, she made you the fool. Are you just going to let her get away with it? I already knew the answer, so I logged into her accounts. And with one click, I plastered those screenshots across her Instagram story, across her Snapchat, her friends, her co-workers, even her family if they followed her. It was all there in plain sight. But I didn't stop there. I sent the screenshots directly to the guy she was cheating with. I wanted him to see I wasn't blind to his little secret affair. And then I went further. I sent them to her boss, because she wasn't just doing this outside of work. She was sexting her manager on the clock, in uniform, while she was supposed to be working. And for the final twist of the knife, I sent them to her mother, the same mother I had just spent a week helping move into her new home. The same week Emily was busy texting her manager boy toy every chance she got. When the messages were sent, I sat there in silence. My heart was hammering like I'd just run a marathon. But beneath the adrenaline, a strange calm began to settle. For the first time since discovering her betrayal, I didn't feel powerless. I felt like I had taken something back. But if you think that was the end of it, oh no, the fallout was only just beginning. Because what came next would not only shake her world, it would drag other people into the fire she thought she could control. The first response I got wasn't from her. It was from him, the guy she was cheating with. His reply came quick, like he'd been waiting for the other shoe to drop. He tried to downplay it first, brushing it off with short, clipped messages. But the panic was obvious. You could almost hear it bleeding through the screen. And I have to admit, that gave me a twisted sense of satisfaction. Because for every smug little smirk he shared with her while I was in the dark, for every inside joke where I was a punchline, now he was caught in the spotlight. Then silence. The manager, her boss, and her mother all had the screenshots now. None of them replied immediately, but I could see the scene notification, that little check mark, that little viewed tag. It was like a silent bomb ticking away. I sat there waiting, wondering which part of her world would collapse first. When she finally called me, her voice was different. Gone was the smug, dismissive tone she used when she said it was just flirting. Now she sounded small, almost broken. She apologized, over and over, tried to spin it as a mistake. But here's the thing. You can't unsay the things you brag about when you think the person you love will never hear them. You can't walk back laughing at your partner, calling them a doormat. I told her flat out what I'd done, that everyone knew, that the charade was over. And then I told her to screw herself. Hanging up that phone wasn't just the end of the call. It was the end of us. And for the first time in weeks, I felt free. Of course, the drama didn't end there. Her boss had seen everything, but hadn't replied. For days, I checked, wondering if she'd lose her job, if she'd face real consequences for sexting a manager while on the clock. And while part of me knew it wasn't guaranteed, employers don't always want to get tangled in personal drama, I also knew one thing. Even if they didn't fire her, the damage was done. Think about it. Her boss, her co-workers, everyone now knew what was happening. Every time she walked into that restaurant, the whispers would follow. Every time she clocked in, she'd feel eyes on her. That's a punishment no pay raise can wash away. But she wasn't just doing damage control at work. No, she was also scrambling online. Her social media, the same place I dropped the truth, had turned into a battlefield. Friends asking questions, family raising eyebrows, people she barely spoke to suddenly chiming in. She could delete the posts, sure, but you can't delete the memory of who saw them. It wasn't long before she reached back out to me again. But this time, it wasn't an apology. It was rage. She told me only a person like me would go so far. She accused me of being spiteful, vindictive, cruel. She tried to turn the tables, like somehow I was the bad guy for not swallowing the humiliation and walking away quietly. We ended up in a screaming match. Ugly names were thrown, insults that can't be taken back. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. She wasn't angry because of what I did. She was angry because I refused to stay silent. because I refused to keep playing the fool in her story. The truth was out, and no matter how much she screamed, she couldn't cage it again. Still, a part of me wasn't satisfied. Maybe that's human nature. Once betrayal cuts deep enough, even exposing it doesn't always feel like enough. So I took it a step further. I contacted the owner of the restaurant, sent him everything, explained how his employees, 2 managers, were using company time and space for their affair. Legally, he told me, his hands were tied. He couldn't interfere in situations outside the workplace. Even though the screenshots showed texts happening during shifts, he wasn't going to make it official. I'll admit, that stung. But then I thought about it. At-will employment means she could be fired at any time for practically any reason. Maybe he didn't want to deal with the paperwork. Maybe he didn't want to risk the fallout. But one thing was certain, her job would never feel the same again. Imagine walking into work knowing your GM, your boss, and your coworkers are all aware that you were sexting a manager while on the clock. That shame doesn't wash off. It lingers like smoke after a fire. And honestly, that was almost sweeter than watching her get fired outright. Because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about her living every single day with the knowledge that her dirty secret was no longer secret. But the universe wasn't done twisting the knife. See, the guy she cheated with, he wasn't single. He was a co-parent, a single father. And I, still holding every screenshot, every proof of betrayal, decided the mother of his child deserved to know the truth. So I reached out. I showed her everything. Her response? Sadness, but not surprise. Apparently, she had already told me a year ago to cut off contact with my ex. She didn't want her child around people who disrespected her, who stirred drama. She already knew my ex knew her attitude, knew the kind of snobbish, dismissive way she treated people. And as fate would have it, their own relationship had ended because of cheating, too. The man who slept with my girlfriend had cheated on her as well, with yet another woman from the same restaurant. Talk about poetic justice. It was like watching dominoes fall. Each truth I uncovered knocked another piece of their fake little world to the floor. My ex, who used to preach about how she hated cheaters, how she despised her father for betraying her mother during pregnancy, was now playing the exact role she once condemned. The hypocrisy was almost too perfect. When the dust began to settle, I looked back at what I'd done. Did I go overboard? Probably. I'd never been that ruthless before. Never stooped to the level of exposing someone's private life so publicly. But when you've been laughed at, mocked, and treated like a disposable option by the person you love most, something inside you breaks. And sometimes, the only way to glue it back together is through fire. I wasn't proud of how far I'd gone. But I wasn't sorry either. Because in the end, she didn't just lose me. She lost respect. She lost the illusion of control. She lost the power she thought she had when she giggled about being caught, thinking I'd roll over and take it. And me? I finally stopped feeling like a joke. But even after all of that, her reputation shattered, her secrets exposed, there was still one last twist, one last revelation that proved karma always has the final word. There's something uniquely cruel about betrayal. It isn't just the act itself. It's the story behind it, the contradictions, the double standards, the way people can preach one thing while secretly doing the opposite. And with Emily, the hypocrisy was staggering. She had always been vocal about her hatred for cheaters. I remember one night, sitting on the couch, when she went off on a tangent about her father. She told me how he cheated on her mother during pregnancy, how much she despised him for it, how she swore she'd never let herself be involved in anything even remotely similar. She cried about it, made me swear I'd never do that to her. And yet, there she was, not just betraying me, but proudly stepping into the role she once swore she hated. It's strange. When people hurt you, you expect them to at least feel some shame, to see the contradiction in their own words and actions. But Emily, she seemed blind to it. She didn't see herself as a villain. She saw herself as untouchable. That's what made exposing her feel so poetic. Because the truth didn't just ruin her reputation, it revealed her hypocrisy. And that, more than anything, was what burned her carefully curated image to the ground. When I contacted the co-parent, the mother of the manager's son, I didn't expect much. Maybe a shocked reaction, maybe some tears, maybe silence. What I got instead was understanding. She wasn't surprised. She told me that this man, Emily's secret fling, had been doing this for years. Not just with Emily, but with other women at the same restaurant. Cheating seemed to be his pattern. And when I sent her the screenshots, she sighed. She told me this was exactly why their relationship had ended, why she no longer trusted him, why she didn't want her child exposed to people like Emily. It was almost chilling, because while I was sitting there, reeling from fresh betrayal, she was speaking from the exhaustion of years of betrayal. And hearing her story gave me something I hadn't had in weeks. Perspective. I wasn't alone in this. I wasn't the only one who had been lied to, disrespected, and made to feel like less. There were others, other victims of the same twisted little web. And if anything, exposing Emily and her manager wasn't just revenge. It was justice. Justice for everyone who'd ever been used by them, laughed at by them, or thrown aside when they were no longer convenient. But here's the part that most people don't talk about when it comes to revenge. It doesn't come without a cost. Because once the adrenaline faded, once the fire died down, I was left with something else. Silence. The kind of silence that forces you to look inward. I realized how much energy I had spent trying to destroy her image, when what I really needed was to rebuild myself. I had been humiliated, emasculated, dragged to the mud, and instead of just walking away, I set fire to everything around me. Did it feel good? Absolutely. Watching her squirm, watching her scramble to control a story she could never control again. It was intoxicating. But it also left me drained, because underneath all the chaos, I still had to face the same truth. She never wanted me. She never valued me. And she never deserved me. And that realization hit harder than any screenshot ever could. That's when I knew I needed help. I admitted to myself that the revenge, satisfying as it was, wasn't enough. It didn't heal the wound. It didn't erase the feeling of betrayal. It didn't change the fact that I'd been laughed at by someone I loved. So I made a choice that surprised even me. I reached out for therapy. Not because I was weak. Not because I couldn't handle the situation. But because I realized revenge had taken me to a place I didn't recognize. A place where anger controlled me more than I controlled it. And I didn't want to live there. I wanted to rebuild. To become stronger, healthier, better. Not just for myself, but so that no one could ever break me down the way Emily had again. It was the first step in turning the story from hers back into mine. But even as I started focusing on myself, karma had one last card to play. Remember Emily's little lectures about never wanting to be a single mom? About how she hated the idea of raising a child alone because of her father's betrayal? Well, here's the irony. The man she cheated with, the one she thought was some grand escape, was notorious for leaving wreckage behind. He had already broken his family. He had already proven himself untrustworthy. And guess what? By getting involved with him, Emily wasn't escaping the life she claimed to hate. She was running headfirst into it. She mocked me for being a doormat. She laughed about replacing me. But in the end, she replaced me with someone who would do to her exactly what she'd done to me. That's the thing about karma. It doesn't always strike fast, but it always strikes true. Looking back now, I don't regret exposing her. Would I do it the same way again? Maybe not. Maybe I'd handle it with less fire, less spite. Maybe I'd just walk away and let her ruin herself without my help. But at the same time, I can't deny the satisfaction. Because for once, the person who laughed at me didn't get the last laugh. I did. And in a way, that was enough closure for me. The rest, the rebuilding, the healing, the moving on, that's my responsibility now. But the memory of her face, her life, her reputation shattering under the weight of her own hypocrisy, that will always remind me that even when you're made to feel like a joke, you can still write the punchline. But here's the real kicker. Revenge might have ended my relationship with Emily, but it started something else entirely. A lesson not just for me, but for anyone who's ever been betrayed. You know, people think betrayal is just about losing trust. But the real pain isn't in the act. It's in the reflection. It's waking up and realizing that the person you poured your love, your time, your energy into was never who you thought they were. It's a shattering of an illusion, and the realization that every memory you thought was solid suddenly feels fake. And that's where the anger comes from. That's where the revenge is born. Because betrayal doesn't just break your heart. It attacks your dignity, your sense of self-worth. It makes you question whether you were blind, whether you were weak, whether you somehow deserved it. Emily's betrayal did all of that to me. It left me staring into a mirror I didn't recognize. But here's the thing. Mirrors don't just show us the cracks. They also show us what needs to be rebuilt. Let's be honest. Revenge gets a bad reputation. People say it's toxic, petty, destructive. And sometimes it is. But sometimes it's justice. When someone humiliates you, mocks you, drags your name to the dirt while they're smiling at your face, you reach a crossroads. Do you walk away quietly and let them write the ending of your story? Or do you take the pen back and show them you're not a character in their comedy? You're the author of your own narrative? For me, revenge wasn't about cruelty. It wasn't about being vindictive for the sake of it. It was about balance, about correcting the scale that Emily had tipped so heavily against me. Because after she laughed at me, after she called me a doormat, what she needed wasn't forgiveness. It was exposure, and I gave it to her. Let's talk about what Emily actually lost. First, she lost her dignity. When your friends, your coworkers, your boss, and even your family see you for who you really are, that's a wound you can't stitch up with a simple apology. Then, she lost her reputation. Every shift she worked, every Instagram follower she had, every person who glanced at her Snapchat story, they now carried a memory of her betrayal. And finally, she lost me, not because I walked away, but because I stopped being the fool who gave her endless second chances. I stopped being the guy who swallowed humiliation for the sake of keeping her. She lost me the moment I decided I deserved better. But this story isn't just about her loss. It's about my gain. I gained clarity. Clarity that no matter how much you love someone, if they don't respect you, that love is worthless. I gained strength, because taking a stand, even if it meant setting off a bomb that scorched both of us, proved to me that I wasn't weak. I wasn't a doormat. I was someone who demanded dignity. And I gained freedom, because once the dust settled, I wasn't chained to her lies anymore. I wasn't stuck in the cycle of suspicion, gaslighting, and false apologies. I was free to move forward, and that freedom was worth every ounce of chaos that came before it. Here's what I want you to take from this story. Because it isn't just about me and Emily. It's about anyone who's ever been lied to, cheated on, or made to feel small. The lesson is this. Betrayal doesn't define you. Their lies don't define you. Their laughter, their mockery, their disrespect, that belongs to them, not you. What defines you is how you respond. Do you let them write you off as a joke? Or do you show them that your worth was never tied to their approval in the first place? For me, revenge was a path to that realization. It might not be for everyone. Some people can walk away quietly and find peace. But for me, peace came from standing up, from refusing to let her rewrite my story. And I'll never apologize for that. So here's how it ends. Emily is still at that restaurant, still clocking in, pretending nothing happened. But the truth lingers in the air like smoke. Every coworker who saw those screenshots, every friend who read those messages, they all know her manager Fling, his co-parent knows the truth. His reputation is just as tainted. And while he may have escaped official consequences at work, he'll never escape the shadow of what he's done. And me, I'm moving forward. I've started therapy. I've started rebuilding myself. And every session, every moment of reflection reminds me that I'm not broken. I was just tested, and I came out stronger. Betrayal is fire. It burns, it scars, it consumes. But if you let it, it can also forge. It can make you stronger, sharper, more resilient than before. And that's what I learned. Revenge didn't just expose Emily. It reminded me of my own worth. It reminded me that no matter how hard someone tries to make you a punchline, you always have the power to write your own ending. So, what do you think? Did I go too far? Or did I do exactly what needed to be done? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below with the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen or experienced. And if you enjoyed the story of betrayal, karma, and poetic justice, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that respect isn't optional, it's earned. Because at the end of the day, sometimes revenge isn't just sweet, it's necessary.